Greetings, my name is John Woodruff, and welcome to part two of a three-part series in exploring pathways for high school students with disabilities in their transition to college and career. So our objectives for this workshop is to help parents and students gain an understanding of the college transition process that was discussed last time, and to focus in on the availability of campus resources for students. And in specific, applying for academic and housing accommodations, deciding to commute or live on campus, and accessing those campus resources. As discussed before, a summer bridge program is appropriate for some students with disabilities. Coaching, tutoring, and counseling resources, all free resources for students. So this is worth repeating. A keynote speaker from a transition event years ago had said that students and parents need to know that when a student transitions out of high school, they're moving from a system of entitlement to eligibility. So it really puts the onus on the parents and students to seek out those resources once the student applies to a college, makes a decision. So here at Rowan University, we actually have a tremendous growth over the last number of years. We are over 2,700 students with disabilities registered with the office. 2/3 have hidden disabilities. We discussed that last time, and over 32% have mental health conditions that may be also include students that have depression, anxiety, but they might have diabetes and autism spectrum as well. So again, we meet students where they are. A term that's becoming more common is neurodivergence. That would be a student whose approach to learning is a little bit different than someone that's neurotypical. So that would be students on the autism spectrum, students with ADHD, learning disabilities. We did discuss last time that there's no special admit to a four-year school. The students admitted on their own merit. Here at Rowan, we have over 100 students on the autism spectrum that are registered with disability resources. In the third presentation, we will be discussing more our PATH program for students on the autism spectrum, but also neurodivergent students who attend the university. So as discussed last time, all colleges and universities have a disability resources office. They are required to by law, and they would provide accommodations to students with disabilities, not just classroom accommodations, but if a student needs e-text, if a student needs a housing accommodation, the Disability Resources Office staff work with the student and the parents in the transition to develop an accommodation plan for the students, so they will have those in place before they start school in the fall. So this was covered last time, but it's definitely worth repeating. Strategies for a successful transition. Students need to know that it's okay to ask for help, even if it's new for them. They won't be on anyone's radar if we don't know that they're struggling and that they need resources, whether it's for a course, whether it's an issue with their roommate. So we really do need to hear from students, and we do partner with parents. I want to stress that with a release form that is signed by the student, that partnership with parents is vital, so that it's on our radar if there are concerns that arise with the student when they're on campus. Our success coaching program pairs a grad student or upperclassman with a student, and they will meet once a week for an hour, sometimes more than that, to help them manage their time, stay on track, access resources. Maybe it's not always about academics. It might be that they want to explore different clubs on campus and to apply maybe to work as an RA or an orientation ambassador. So again, whatever the student wants to bring to that coaching meeting, the coach will help them with those resources. Many resources they connect students with would be if they need a tutor for math, or they have a paper that they're writing where they need a writing tutor to look it over. So again, these are like resources that the coach can connect the student with. And our college compass, the summer bridge program, it's a great way for students to jumpstart their transition to college. This program is not just for residential students. We've had students that live nearby the school that want to still participate, so they have that foundation of the resources, the understanding of their accommodation letters before school actually starts. Different colleges have different models. I know one school up north in New Jersey has a program that's in July. So again, do your research and find out what's the best fit for the school that you that your student will be attending, not just with major, but also the resources, and um, um, making sure too that the accommodations a student had in high school, you know, like what carries over, what doesn't carry over. If it won't carry over from high school, ask why that's the case. So again, do your research. So our office has a very close working relationship with the counseling and psychological services. They do individual, group, many other resources. They're a chill and chat that meets every week for students at noon at the end of the week. With the pandemic that we're in the middle of, many of these resources are virtual, and they are still happening, including the coaching program and tutoring for students. So there's also a Department of Social Justice, Inclusion, and Conflict Resolution that has many different programs and resources for students, multicultural, students that have different interests, including LGBTQIA. So it's a great resource for students on campus. This is worth repeating as well, that students do face challenges if they have a disability and decide not to register for resources. We encourage the parents and students to definitely have that conversation before they start college as to what resources they think they will need. And we encourage you to reach out to the Disability Resources Office of the school that you're looking to apply to or that you've been accepted to, and have a meeting with them, whether it's in person or virtual, and then ask the questions about the accommodations, resources, all those things. It's need to be informed before you make your decision where your student will be attending. But the student needs to know that when they're in college, they're in the big league, so they need to take the first step to utilize these resources that are available to them. We talk again about why the parent partnership is necessary. Again, you know your student the best, what resources they need, what resources they do not need. So with a release that is signed by the student, we can have that ongoing communication with the parent, not just with the transition to college, but during their college years at the university. Our office developed a parent email newsletter, which was a way to stay in touch with parents, especially during a time when students students may not read their email regularly. So this way we can provide the information we send out to students in an email blast to the parents a few days later in a parent email newsletter. And most of this information is very time sensitive. So the parents can let the students know that you need to look at your email. It may have to do with picking up your accommodation letters for the new semester. It may be an announcement about the date for priority registration for the new semester, and a housing application for the new semester as well. This is an example of our newsletter. Again, other schools might do different things. We felt that this is a way for parents and students to have that information. Excuse me. These are some examples of accommodations that students typically have when they come to college. And again, these were accommodations the student had in high school. And other accommodations that aren't really like accommodations, but just considerations that students and parents need to know about is that 12 credits is still considered full-time. Although most students take 15 credits, if 12 credits is more manageable for a student, that's worth looking into. Also, when you're doing your research too, look at the schools, how large the classrooms are. So actually at Rowan, the classrooms are smaller, which can be more appealing to students that don't want to be a number in a large lecture hall. So accommodations with the testing at different schools is pretty standard. So the testing center provides placement testing for the incoming students, so they'll know what college level math course they need to take, reading. Also, students with accommodations that get extended time, that's the office that would help manage that and coordinate that with students and their professors. Also, the CLEP exam, that's an opportunity for students to test out a subject that they've mastered the content. So the CLEP is a way to speed up your path to graduation with not having to take the full 3-credit course. With the pandemic, our school, like most, have started providing the remote proctoring for students with exams if needed or requested by the student. So that's one of the things with the pandemic where schools have been able to pivot to still provide those valuable resources and accommodations that students need. So for residential living, if a student decides to live on campus, there are accommodations that they would be eligible for. They would just have to reach out to the Disability Resources Office if they needed those accommodations. For students to students that decide not to live on campus, some of those students may require a parking permit, even though most schools do not allow freshmen or sophomores to have a car on campus. But if the student needs their car as an accommodation, our office will work with that student and their parent. So that way they would have the approval. Some students also might need their car on campus if they work part-time and in a job. So the typical types of housing accommodations, it's mainly air conditioning. Some students might need their own room or a private or semi-private bathroom. Students with physical disabilities might need an accessible room, bathroom, first floor housing, or in a building with an elevator. Other accommodations might be students requesting an emotional support animal, or a second mini fridge if they have diabetes where they need to store their insulin. There are also learned and themed residential communities. It could be for like the honor students, first generation students, or athletes. Some students that need a housing accommodation and want to be part of a learn themed community do need to check with our office, the Disability Resources Office at the school you're attending, and also housing to see what's possible to make those accommodations. There are students that need meal plan accommodations based on a food allergy. At our school, we work very closely with the dietitian, with the cafeteria service, so that way we can help those students that need those meal plan accommodations and the individualized attention so that they get the meals and the nutrition they need. Here's some more details with that. So they have a, or at Rowan, we have a full-time dietitian who works very closely with students, and it's a great resource that students need to utilize if they do have those unique dietary needs. Additional accommodations. So at our school, students that get classroom accommodations do have priority registration, which means they can register for classes the first day that it opens up. We do provide students that information in an email as to when that will be, so they will have ample time to schedule their appointment with their advisor. At times, the student or the parent request a representative from Disability Resources to attend the advising meeting, which can be helpful if the student's new to that process. There are also some students with housing accommodations who are eligible to choose their housing early on in that process every spring. Other types of accommodations that we touched upon: meal plan, parking, and temporary accommodations. So each year on our campus, you have students that have injuries, accidents, even a pregnancy, where during that time the student's on the mend or their pregnancy, they would be eligible for temporary accommodations through our office. So to wrap it up, again, it's okay for students to ask for help, to let us know if they are struggling, if they need resources. It is expected. We want students to ask for help. I would just like to emphasize again the importance of students reading emails so they don't miss valuable information. And again, utilize the resources. Most are free. And thank you again for the Learning Resource Center network of at Rowan University. And this concludes part 2. Thank you again.